The wrong door at midnight. The night was silent, heavy and still. The human lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of alien machines that kept the house alive. He could not sleep. For weeks now, he had been living inside this alien settlement, surrounded by beings who looked at him with suspicion, sometimes with fear, sometimes with hatred. Yet tonight felt different. Something in the air was tense, almost waiting for something to happen. The corridor outside his room was dark. Only the faint blue lights on the walls gave a ghostly glow. He closed his eyes, trying to push away his restless thoughts, when suddenly, click. The handle of his door moved. His eyes snapped open. The soft creak of wood followed, slow and careful, as if someone was trying not to be heard. The door opened a few inches. A shadow slipped inside. The human pushed himself up on his elbows, heart racing. He expected a guard, maybe another alien visitor coming to check on him. But instead, standing in the doorway, was a small figure dressed in the plain clothing of a servant. It was the alien Maid. Her skin had a soft pale glow in the dim light, and her eyes, large and silver, shone like moons. She froze when she realized the human was awake. For a long second, neither moved. The silence pressed on both of them. Then, almost in panic, she whispered in her own tongue, words soft and broken. The human did not understand her language, but he understood her fear. Her chest rose and fell quickly, as if she had just run from something. "Who are you?" the human asked, his voice low but steady. The maid flinched, as if his words were fire. She had been told humans were dangerous, unpredictable, and not to be trusted. But now here she was, standing in his room by mistake. Her hands trembled. She took a small step backward, but her eyes refused to leave him. They were wide-wit. A shock, almost as if she had seen something she was never meant to see. Wrong door," she stammered in broken common, the trade language between species. Her accent was thick, her words clumsy, but her meaning was clear. She had not meant to come here. The human tilted his head, curious. Wrong door? At this hour? His voice was calm, but his heart thudded faster. Something about her presence at midnight did not feel like a simple mistake. The maid's silver eyes flickered away, toward the dark corridor outside. She looked afraid, not just of him, but of being caught here. Her body was tense, as if someone might appear behind her at any moment. She hugged her arms close, clutching the thin cloth of her servant uniform, and whispered, "I not see, I not ready." The words confused him. Not ready for what? Her eyes shifted back to him, and for the first time, he noticed a strange expression on her face. It wasn't just fear, it was shock. Deep shock, as though she had witnessed something impossible inside this room. Her gaze lingered on him, not on the bed, not on the walls, but on him alone. The human suddenly felt exposed, as though her eyes pierced deeper than sight. "What did you see?" he asked firmly. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Her throat tightened. She shook her head quickly, as if denying herself the right to speak. The human saw the conflict inside her, the war between obedience and truth, between fear and curiosity. He stood slowly, careful not to startle her. The floor creaked under his weight. The maid instantly stepped back, her hands raised as though to defend herself. "No, close!" she hissed, her voice sharper now, trembling with panic. The human froze in place, lifting his hands to show he meant no harm. "I won't hurt you," he said gently. His voice was steady, almost soothing. The maid's chest heaved. Her breath came fast, like a trapped bird. She looked at the door, then back at him, torn between fleeing and staying. Her fingers curled into fists, then relaxed, then curled again. It was as though some invisible chain bound her there. Finally, in a voice barely more than a whisper, she said, "You? Not like they say." The human frowned. "What do they say?" She shook her head again, refusing to answer, but the fear in her eyes deepened. She turned toward the door as if to leave, but then stopped. Her body stiffened. Outside, faint footsteps echoed in the corridor. Slow, heavy, approaching. The maid's face turned pale. Her silver eyes darted back to the human. She pressed a finger to her lips, begging for silence, then quickly pushed the door shut behind her. The room fell into complete stillness again, only the sound of two hearts beating. One human, one alien, both racing. In that instant, the human knew this was no mistake. She had come to his door for a reason she could not yet say, and whatever she had seen in him, it had already changed everything. Her frightened gaze. The human sat still in the dim room, his ears tuned to the fading footsteps outside the door. They passed slowly, echoing like heavy drums in the corridor, and tease. Hen disappeared into silence again. Only then did he notice the maid, her back pressed against the closed door, her breathing shallow and fast, as though she had escaped a predator. Her wide silver eyes were locked on him, trembling, shining faintly in the low light. She looked like a trapped creature, caught between fear and some secret she carried in her heart. The human lowered his voice, trying not to frighten her more. "Why are you here? Tell me the truth." The maid's lips trembled. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Instead, her gaze traveled over him again, studying his face, his hands, the shape of his shoulders. Every second she looked, her shock seemed to grow stronger. Finally, in broken common, she whispered, "You, not monster." The word struck him. A monster. Was that what her people had told her about humans? He almost laughed, but when he saw her frightened gaze, he felt no humor in it. She truly believed she had just seen something forbidden, something her people denied. "What did they tell you about me?" he asked. Her eyes darted to the floor, then back up. "They say, human dangerous, human cruel, human break, everything." Her voice was shaky, filled with conflict. "But I look at you, I see different." The human sighed, sitting back on the edge of the bed. "I'm just a man," he said quietly. "I bleed, I breathe, I sleep, that's all." But the maid shook her head almost angrily. "No, I see light." Her hand moved slightly, as if she wanted to point at his chest, then stopped. She pressed her palm to her own chest instead, as though steadying her racing heart. Her words unsettled him. Light? What did she mean by that? The maid's gaze softened, but fear still wrapped her like chains. She lowered herself slowly to the floor, sitting by the door as if her legs could no longer hold her. The thin fabric of her servant dress brushed against the cold ground. She hugged her knees close and whispered, "I should not be here. If they know, I come inside." She did not finish the sentence, but her voice broke with dread. The human leaned forward. "Who will punish you?" Her eyes narrowed. She hesitated, then shook her head. "I cannot say." He frowned. She was hiding something bigger than just a mistake. The way she had slipped inside, the way she had shut the door when the footsteps came, it was no accident. She had come here because she needed something. But what? The maid finally lifted her head, silver eyes shimmering in the faint light. "Why you not angry?" she asked suddenly. The human blinked. "Angry?" "Yes." Her voice was tight, as if every word was a struggle. "If human is cruel, you see me, you take, you hurt. That what they say. But you, sit calm. You speak soft." She tilted her head, confusion mixing with fear. "Why?" For the first time since she entered, the human smiled faintly. "Because I don't believe in hurting someone who's already afraid." Her breath caught. She stared at him as though his words were impossible, as though they broke every rule she had been taught since birth. Her gaze lingered on his face, searching for lies, but she found none. Something in her chest shifted. Her fear did not vanish, but it changed shape. No longer terror of being harmed, but fear of being seen. She felt exposed under his steady eyes, as if he could read the secrets she carried. She whispered again, her voice so low he almost didn't hear it. "If they know I see you like this, they will take me away." The human's brows furrowed. "Why?" Her lips parted, but footsteps sounded again, too. His time farther away, but still inside the house. She froze, her silver eyes wide with alarm. Quickly, she crawled closer to him, her movements desperate. She leaned in, almost touching his arm, and hissed, "Please, say nothing. Not one word. Promise me." Her closeness startled him, the warmth of her breath, the trembling of her hand inches from his skin. She looked fragile, yet her fear was fierce, wild, unbroken. The human hesitated. If he promised, he might be protecting her. But what if her secret put them both in danger? Still, when he looked into her eyes, he could not refuse. "I promise," he said. Her shoulders dropped in relief. For a moment, her frightened gaze softened into something else. Trust, fragile and unsteady, but real. She leaned back, pressing her palms to the ground, breathing as if she had been drowning and only now reached the surface. Yet even in that relief, her silver eyes never left him. They searched him, studied him, as though trying to memorize every detail before the world forced her away. The human felt it too, that something had just begun between them, something fragile, dangerous, and unspoken. Outside the door, the house returned to silence. Inside, two strangers sat in the dark, One human, one alien maid, bound by fear, trust, and a secret neither fully understood. But the way she looked at him, her frightened gaze, her trembling hope, told him one thing. This was no simple mistake. Secrets revealed. The room was still, yet the air between them felt heavy with unspoken truths. The human leaned forward, watching the maid's trembling hands. She sat close to the door, her back pressed against the wood as though it was the only thing keeping her safe. But her silver eyes kept darting to him, almost glowing in the dark. She looked torn apart inside. Fear clung to her, but so did something else, a need, a secret she had been forced to carry alone. "Why are you afraid of them?" the human asked softly. "Who will take you away if they find you here?" The maid shook her head quickly as if his words were too dangerous to even repeat. "You not understand," she whispered, her voice sharp and thin. "If they know I come, if they know I see you like this, they say I am traitor." The human frowned. Traitor? For what? For opening a door? Her lips pressed together, and her eyes dropped to the floor. She hugged her knees tighter, rocking slightly as if comforting herself. Finally, she spoke in broken words, her voice low and trembling. "I am not only Maid. I am property." The human's chest tightened. Property. The word carried weight, the kind that made his blood run cold. "What do you mean?" he asked. She swallowed hard. Her fingers dug into her arms, leaving faint marks on her pale skin. "I belong to them. My life, not mine. I work, I serve, I obey. If I do not, they punish." Her voice cracked at the last word. She looked up suddenly, fear and shame burning together in her silver gaze. "And if they know I speak with you, if they know I see you, they say I break rule. They take me away, may be gone forever." The human sat back slowly, his mind racing. He had suspected the alien society treated servants harshly, but hearing it from her lips made it real. He looked at her trembling body, her haunted eyes, and realized she wasn't here by accident. She hadn't. It stumbled into his room. She had been driven here. "Why come to me then?" he asked gently, "if it's so dangerous?" Her breathing hitched. She opened her mouth, closed it, then whispered the truth. "Because I have no one else, and because I saw something." The human tilted his head. "Saw what?" Her eyes locked onto his, silver fire meeting human warmth. "When you look at me," she said slowly, "I not feel like slave. I not feel like dirt. I feel alive." The word stunned him. For her, even a simple look from him was different from the cold stares of her own people. He realized in that moment how starved she was for kindness, for recognition, for something more than being property. But then her voice dropped to a whisper, almost shaking with fear. "And oh, I see light in you." The human frowned. "Light? What do you mean?" She pressed her palm against her chest above her heart. "It is old story. My people say humans, cursed. They say human soul black. But when I look at you, I see light, not black, not curse, different. If I tell anyone, they call me liar. They say I am broken." Her body trembled as she admitted it. "That is why I am afraid. I should not see you like this. It is forbidden, but I cannot unsee." The human's jaw tightened. He had been called many things since he was captured here. Strange, dangerous, savage, but no one had ever called him light. And to hear it from this fragile maid who risked everything to say it shook him deeply. He leaned closer, his voice low. "You're not broken. You see the truth, and that truth scares them." Her eyes widened. For a moment, hope flickered inside them. But then she shook her head violently, tears forming at the edges. "No, you not understand. If they know I think this, they not just punish me. They break me. They erase me. I disappear." Her voice cracked into a whisper. "I not ready to vanish." The human's fists clenched at his sides. He had seen cruelty before, but to hear how easily her people could erase her life, it filled him with quiet rage, yet he kept his tone calm. "Then stay quiet. Stay safe. But know this, you're not wrong. What you saw in me, it's real." The maid blinked at him, her lips parting in disbelief. For so long she had doubted her own eyes, her own heart, but hearing him confirm it gave her something she hadn't felt in years: courage. She exhaled shakily as though a weight had been lifted. Then she leaned forward, her silver eyes glimmering with both fear and wonder. "Why you not fear me?" The human chuckled softly. Because I've been feared enough. I don't need to fear you. Her lips curved slightly, almost a smile, though it vanished quickly. She lowered her head again, whispering, "Thank you." The silence between them grew softer, less tense. For the first time, the maid seemed calmer, but just as the air lightened, another sound reached them. Voices. Two of them, low, sharp, speaking in the alien tongue. They were moving closer down the corridor. The maid's eyes widened in panic. She scrambled to her feet, her hands shaking. "They come," she hissed. "If they see me here." The humans see. Out quickly, blocking her path to the door. "Wait, don't go yet. They'll see you leave my room." She froze, caught between fear and his logic. The voices grew louder, footsteps echoing. The human grabbed her arm, not harshly but firmly, and pulled her deeper into the shadows of the room. The maid gasped softly at his touch but did not pull away. Her silver eyes locked onto his again, filled with fear, but also with something else now, trust. As the voices passed outside, the two of them stood close in the dark. Her secret was out. She wasn't just a maid, she was a prisoner of her own people's lies, and now she had shared her forbidden truth with a human. And in that moment, both of them knew there was no turning back. The forbidden touch. The room was silent again, but the silence was heavier now, filled with the sound of their hearts beating too fast. Outside, the voices faded down the corridor, leaving only the faint hum of alien machines. Inside, the human and the maid stood close together, shadows hiding them, breaths mingling in the dark. The human slowly released her arm, realizing only now that he had been holding her. The maid stepped back a little, pressing her hand against her chest where her heart hammered wildly. Her silver eyes stayed fixed on him, trembling, confused, yet unable to look away. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she whispered, her voice soft as a trembling leaf. "They say, never touch human." The human tilted his head. "Why?" Her hands curled into fists at her sides. "Because touch changes. They say human touch, poison, human touch, break mind. If I touch, I will not belong anymore." She looked away, ashamed of her own words, as if repeating her people's warnings hurt her. But when she glanced back at him, her eyes betrayed something else. Curiosity, burning deep inside, stronger than fear. The human's voice was calm, steady. "I'm not poison. I'm not what they told you." The maid swallowed hard. Her body trembled. Her hands twitched slightly, rising halfway before she stopped herself. She shook her head violently. "No, forbidden." But her gaze betrayed her words. She wanted to know. She wanted to see if the stories were true or lies. The human sat slowly on the edge of his bed, lowering himself carefully so he wouldn't scare her. "Then don't believe the stories," he said softly. "See for yourself." Her breath caught. The invitation shocked her. Her silver eyes widened, and her lips parted, but no words came. She stared at him as if he had just dared her to leap into fire. Her feet moved before her mind allowed it. Step by step, she crossed the room, her thin dress brushing against her legs, her shadow stretching across the floor. She stopped in front of him, close enough to hear his steady breathing. Her hand hovered in the air, trembling inches above his skin. Her entire body shook. She could not breathe. If she touched him, everything she had been taught would break. If she pulled away, she would never know the truth. The human raised his hand slowly, carefully, and held it out between them. Not forcing, not demanding, just waiting. His eyes told her, "The choice is yours." The maid's heart pounded. Her silver eyes shimmered with tears. She closed them for a second, whispering to herself in her own language, words of fear, maybe prayer, maybe rebellion. Then, with a trembling gasp, she lowered her hand and pressed her palm against his. The moment their skin touched, a shock raced through her body. Not pain, not poison, something else, warmth. A strange, powerful warmth that spread through her veins, reaching her heart, her lungs, her very soul. Her breath escaped in a sharp gasp. She pulled back slightly, but his hand held steady, calm, safe. Her eyes flew open, wide with disbelief. "It not burn," she whispered. The human gave a small smile. "I told you, no poison." But the maid's body shook harder. It changed. I feel different." She pressed her free hand against her chest as though trying to contain the strange energy running through her. "I feel alive." Her eyes filled with tears. She had never felt this before. Not from her people, not from anyone. A simple touch had broken the chains of every lie she had been told. The human gently pulled his hand back, not wanting to overwhelm her. "You see now," he said quietly. "The stories are lies. You decide what's true." The maid stared at him, her chest rising and falling quickly. For the first time, her fear was mixed with something else. Wonder, awe, a dangerous, forbidden hope. But then she heard it, the faint creak of a door somewhere down the hall. Her eyes widened in panic. She stepped back quickly, wiping her face with her sleeve, as if trying to erase what had just happened. "No one know," she hissed, her voice urgent. "If they see, if they know, I am finished. And you too." The human nodded slowly. "I won't tell anyone." She turned toward the door but stopped before opening it. Her hand rested on the handle, trembling. She glanced back at him, her silver eyes soft but heavy with warning. "Do not trust this house. Not safe. Not for you. Not for me." Then, with one last look, she slipped out into the corridor and vanished into the shadows. The human sat in silence, his palm still tingling where her hand had touched his. It had been brief, but powerful. A single touch had changed something between them, something that could never be undone. He lay back slowly on the bed, staring at the ceiling. He didn't know what she had risked to step into his room, or why she had chosen him. But he knew one thing. That forbidden touch had unlocked something far more dangerous than fear. It had unlocked trust. And in a house full of lies, that trust might be the only weapon they had. Whispers in the dark. The human slept lightly that night, if he slept at all. His mind replayed the moment again and again, the alien maid's trembling hand pressing into his, her silver eyes widening with shock, her whispered words, "I feel alive." It had been only a touch, but the weight of it lingered. It was forbidden, dangerous, and yet it felt more real than anything since he had come to this alien house. But as the days passed, the human began to notice a change. The corridors felt heavier, the silence was sharper. Wherever he went, he could feel eyes on him. Guards, servants, even strangers passing in the courtyard. They all seemed more alert, more suspicious. He realized he was no longer invisible. Someone, somewhere had started whispering. That night, when the house grew quiet and most lights dimmed, he heard the sound again, the faintest creak of his door opening. He sat up quickly, his heart racing, but this time he knew who it was. The maid slipped inside like a shadow. She shut the door quickly behind her and pressed her back against it, breathing fast. Her eyes darted around the room as though afraid someone had followed. "What is it?" the human asked, keeping his voice low. She hurried to him, kneeling by his bed. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "They suspect," she whispered urgently. "They say, I look different. They say my eyes not the same. They watch me now." The human frowned. "Because of me?" She nodded slowly, her hands trembling. "They ask why I go near your room. They ask what I saw. I say nothing, but they not believe." Whispers in dark grow stronger. Her voice cracked. She looked at him with fear, but also with something else, a silent plea. She needed him to understand how dangerous this had become. The human leaned closer. "Then don't come here. Stay away. Protect yourself." But her head shook violently, tears forming in her silver eyes. "No, I cannot. If I stay away, I lose truth, and I cannot go back to lies." Her words struck him hard. For her, the choice wasn't just safety versus danger. It was truth versus falsehood. Once she had touched him, once she had seen him not as a monster but as something else, there was no returning to the chains of her people's stories. The human's jaw tightened. He understood, but it meant both of them were walking a path that could not end quietly. She reached out suddenly, clutching his arm. "Promise me," she whispered fiercely. "If they come for me, you not let them take. You fight, please." Her grip was desperate, her fingers digging into his skin. For a moment, the human stared at her, caught between caution and the fire in her eyes. Finally, he nodded. "I promise." Her shoulders sagged in relief, though fear still trembled inside her. She sat back, hugging her knees, rocking gently like a child in the dark. Her silver eyes flicked to the door every few seconds, as if expecting it to burst open at any moment. The human studied her. "Tell me something," he said softly. "Why do they fear me so much? Why do they call me poison?" The maid's lips pressed tight. She looked away, hesitant, then whispered, "Old law, old story. They say long ago humans break worlds. Humans bring fire, bring death. They say human soul, curse. So now they keep you locked. They keep you watched. They say if one of us touch you, we fall." Her eyes shimmered with tears. "But I touched you, and I rise." Her words filled the air with dangerous weight. For her, the truth was now alive inside, but for her people, that truth was the greatest threat of all. Suddenly, a noise outside made both of them freeze. Not footsteps this time, whispers, faint but close. Two voices speaking in the alien tongue. The maid stiffened, her eyes wide. "They are here," she hissed. "They listen." The human stood quickly, scanning the shadows of the room. The whispers outside grew sharper, a hiss of suspicion. He moved closer to the door, listening. He could make out fragments, though not the full meaning, but the tone was clear. Doubt, curiosity, distrust. The maid grabbed his hand, pulling him back. "No sound," she begged. "If they hear us." The whispers went on for a while, then slowly faded down the hall. Only when silence returned did she release his hand, trembling. Her silver eyes shone in the darkness. "It begins," she whispered. "What begins?" the human asked. "The hunt," she replied, her voice shaking. "They look for truth. They know something change. They will find, unless—" She stopped herself, pressing her lips tight. "Unless what?" the human pressed. Her hands gripped her knees tightly, her knuckles white. She stared at him for a long time, then finally whispered, "Unless we run." The human's chest tightened. Run? Where could they go? Beyond the walls was a world even more hostile, but the fire in her eyes told him she would rather face the unknown than be erased in the shadows of her own house. That night, as the ant so, Maid slipped back into the corridor, leaving him alone once again. The human lay awake with a storm in his chest. The whispers had begun, the eyes were watching, and now a choice was rising before them both. Stay and be broken, or run and risk everything. The risk of discovery. Morning light crept through the narrow window, painting the walls of the human's room in pale colors. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the door. The maid's words from the night before echoed in his mind. The hunt begins. He could already feel it. When he stepped into the corridors later, the atmosphere was different. Every alien servant lowered their voices when he passed. Some refused to meet his eyes. Others stared too long, as if searching for proof of a rumor they had heard. Even the guards, who normally ignored him, now watched with sharp, suspicious gazes. The whispers were no longer only in the dark. They had followed him into the light. By midday, the maid crossed paths with him in the courtyard. She carried a tray of food, her head bowed low like every other servant, but when her silver eyes flicked up to meet his for the briefest second, he saw the truth. She was scared, terrified. That night, she came to his door again, not with trembling hesitation, but with urgency. She shut the door quickly and pressed her body against it, breathing fast. "They ask me questions," she whispered. "They say I look different. They say I hide something. They will not stop." The human stood. "What did you tell them?" "Nothing." Her silver eyes darted to him, shining with panic. "But they not believe me. They say I smell of human. They say my eyes brighter since that night. They will keep pushing until—" She broke off, shaking her head. The human's jaw tightened. He hated the fear in her voice, the way her hands shook. "Then we need a plan," he said firmly. She moved closer, clutching his arm. "No plan can hide forever. They will discover. And if they discover, they not only punish me, they punish you. Harder. They break you." Her words carried weight, but the human did not flinch. He had lived under suspicion since the day he arrived in this house, but now it felt different. Now, it wasn't only his life at risk, it was hers. "Tell me the worst," he said. "What will they do if they find out?" Her lips parted, but she hesitated. Finally, her voice cracked. "They take me away, erase me. No one remember I exist. And you, they will chain you again, deeper. You will not see light." The human clenched his fists. Then we can't let that happen. The maid looked at him with wide, trembling eyes. You not understand. This house is net. Every door watched, every step heard, even walls whisper. She lowered her voice to a faint breath. I think someone already follow me. The human stepped closer, lowering his tone. Then you stay here tonight, safer. Her silver eyes widened. No, if they find me inside, it is end. Then what choice do we have? Her gaze wavered. For a long moment she was silent, staring at the floor. Then she whispered, Run. The human's chest tightened. The idea frightened him too, leaving the safety of walls for the unknown outside. But when he looked into her eyes, he saw the fire of someone who had already decided. She would rather risk the wilderness than live one more day in chains. Before he could answer, a sharp sound cut through the silence. Bang. A knock, harsh, against his door. The maid's entire body froze. Her breath caught in her throat. She looked at the human with wild eyes, then around the room desperately, searching for a place to hide. The knock came again, louder this time. A voice followed, deep, commanding, in the alien tongue. The maid gasped. Guard, she whispered. They come for you. The human moved quickly, pulling her toward the far side of the room. He pointed under the bed. She hesitated, fear in her eyes, but he urged her with a firm look. Finally, she slid beneath the bed, curling into the shadows. Her silver eyes were wide, reflecting faint light as she clamped her hand over her mouth to stay silent. The human turned to the door, steadying his breath. Open, the voice demanded again. He unlatched the door slowly. A tall alien guard stepped inside, armored and grim, his dark eyes scanning the room. He looked at the human with suspicion, then sniffed the air as though searching for a trace. The human stayed calm. What do you want? He asked evenly. The guard narrowed his eyes. You are watched, he said in rough common. Do not forget, the house knows everything. His gaze swept across the room. For a terrifying moment, his eyes lingered on the bed. The human's heart pounded, but his face remained calm. Finally, the guard grunted and turned. Soon, questions will come. Be ready. With that, he left, slamming the door behind him. The human exhaled slowly, his chest tight with tension. He waited a few moments, then knelt and lifted the edge of the blanket. The maid slid out, her body shaking violently. Her breath came in ragged gasps, and her eyes were wet with tears she had fought to hold back. They know, she whispered. They smell me. They hear whispers. They know. The human put a steady hand on her shoulder. Then we don't wait anymore. Tomorrow, we find a way out. She looked at him, her fear clashing with hope. You will come with me? Yes, he said firmly. I gave you my word. Her lips parted in disbelief. No one had ever chosen her over safety. No one had ever promised to stand beside her, no matter the risk. She whispered, almost broken, but alive. Then tomorrow, we run. The choice at dawn. The night was long and restless. Neither the human nor the maid slept. She stayed hidden in the corner of his room, curled up against the wall, her silver eyes wide and afraid. He sat by the window, watching the darkness shift into pale blue as the first light of dawn touched the horizon. Today was the day. There would be no more waiting. The whispers had grown too loud, the guard's warning too clear. If they stayed, both would be lost. The human turned to her. It's time, he said quietly. The maid hugged her knees tighter. Her body trembled, but her eyes never left him. If we fail, she whispered, they break us. They erase me. They chain you forever. The human nodded slowly. And if we succeed, we're free. Her lips trembled and tears filled her eyes. She had never spoken the word free before. For her people, freedom was not for servants. Yet here she was, on the edge of something she had never dared to dream. The first rays of sunlight poured into the room. She stood, her hands shaking. We must go now, she said, before the guards change shift. He moved to the door, but she stopped him with a trembling hand. No, she whispered. Not that way. Too many eyes. There is another path. She led him to the far side of the room, where a small panel hid in the wall. She pressed her hand against it, and with a faint hiss, the panel slid open, revealing a narrow passage behind the walls. The human raised his brows. You knew this was here? She nodded, her voice low. Servants use it to move unseen. If we follow it, maybe we reach the outer gate. They stepped inside, the panel closing softly behind them. The passage was dark and narrow, the air stale. Their footsteps echoed faintly as they moved deeper into the hidden paths. The maid led with careful steps, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the shadows. But soon, voices echoed behind them. The human's heart raced. Someone else was in the passages, searching. The maid looked back at him, terror flashing in her gaze. "They know," she whispered. They quickened their pace, the narrow corridor twisting and turning like a maze. Every corner felt like it would lead them straight into the hands of the guards. Finally, they reached a grate. Beyond it lay the courtyard, empty in the early light. Beyond the courtyard stood the tall walls of the house and freedom. The maid pressed her trembling hands against the grate, trying to loosen it, but before she could pull it free, a harsh voice shouted behind them, "Stop!" The passage filled with the heavy steps of guards. The maid gasped. "They found us." The human grabbed the grate with both hands and pulled hard. The metal groaned, bending under his strength. He heaved again, and with a loud crack, the grate broke free. Sunlight poured into the passage. "Go!" he shouted. The maid climbed out first, stumbling into the courtyard. The human followed, dropping beside her just as the guards rushed into view behind them. "Run!" he commanded. They sprinted across the courtyard, their feet slapping against the stone ground. The maid's thin dress tore as she ran, but she did not stop. Her silver eyes blazed with fear and determination. The guards shouted, their heavy boots pounding behind them. Arrows whistled past, striking the ground. The outer gate loomed ahead, tall, black, and locked. The maid's breath caught. "It's closed!" The human rushed forward, grabbing the iron bars. He pulled with all his strength, muscles strained, teeth clenched, until finally, with a loud crack, the old lock snapped. The gate creaked open just enough. "Through!" he shouted. The maid squeezed through, her body scraping against the metal. The human pushed her forward, then forced his own way through as the guards closed in. They stumbled into the open air. Beyond the walls stretched a vast, endless land, wild and dangerous, but free. The maid turned back, her silver eyes wide with tears. "We made it." But the guards were already at the gate, weapons raised. The human grabbed her hand, pulling her away. "Don't stop. Keep running." She stumbled, but his grip steadied her. For the first time in her life, someone was pulling her toward freedom, not dragging her back into chains. As they ran into the wild unknown, the maid looked up at him, her chest heaving, tears streaming down her face. "Why you do this?" she cried. "Why you risk everything for me?" He glanced at her, his breath heavy but steady. "Because you believed in me when no one else would. Because you saw me, not as monster but as light." Her silver eyes glowed brighter, her heart pounding with new fire. She had thought she was nothing but property, a shadow to be erased. But now, running beside him under the rising sun, she felt alive, real and free. Behind them, the guards shouted and cursed. Ahead of them stretched danger, uncertainty, and the unknown. But for the first time, both human and maid knew the truth. They had chosen each other, and no chain, no wall, no whisper in the dark could take that away.